A Nia Life. Since the Thomas movie Big World, Big Adventures, we were introduced to Nia, an orange engine from Kenya who befriends Thomas on his world journey. And as of the 22nd season, Nia becomes part of the main cast. However, she was never given as much background detail or character development during the course of the series, and this story is meant to give Nia a potential background and how she became Nia, or how she met her friends and her motives of joining Thomas and being part of the Northwestern Railway. This is that story. Long before Nia came to Sodor, and long before Nia was a Nia, she worked on the East African Railway in Kenya as a black-colored tank engine called Kessie. Kessie was a good-spirited engine, and a clever one too, always able to think on her wheels on a time of crisis. But not all good apples come from a good tree, and not all trees have good roots. "You're late, again," bellowed a man. He was tall and dark, wearing a very sharp suit, and a tattoo pattern streaming down his neck to his arms, possibly more places if he showed more skin. The man was tapping his foot impatiently as Kessie reached the platform of the station. "I'm very sorry, sir," Kessie apologized. "There were some animals on the tracks, and I tried to make up the lost time, but—"
"Enough with your excuses, Kayla! You should have been here!"
"Kessie." The man just blinked.
"Excuse me?"
"My name is Kessie, sir," the tank engine spoke softly. "Not Kayla."
The tall man glared at the little engine. The wrinkles in his forehead grew deeper as he swung his finger to her face and said, "Don't you ever speak back to me! I shall call you any goddamn name I want! You work for me, engine. For me! That means I have to make sure you're doing your job and staying on time!"
And he tapped his watch vigorously, slightly bringing the conversation back on topic.
"Do I make myself clear?"
Kessie just gave a small sigh. "Yes, sir."
"Good. Now scram and get back to work, or else I'll knock that shed of yours."
To neither of their belief, Kessie was, in fact, on time. The man's watch was just slightly late, and by slightly, it was by 15 minutes. He was always too proud of himself to ever admit that. This never bothered Kessie, however, at least not to an extent. She'd always cuss him out under her breath and cheekily puff away. "Oh, there's no need for that," chuckled Kessie's driver, though secretly she'd cuss him out too. "I can't help it if he can't tell time. I promise you, if it weren't for that zebra, I would have made it to the station in perfect time. Maybe a couple of minutes off, but nothing major. You believe me, don't you, Evie?" "Of course I do, love," the driver replied. "Hey, how about I give you a nice wash when we get back home?" "Oh, yes, yes, yes!" Kessie cheered excitedly. "Thank you, Ivan." Ivan has been Kessie's driver for only half a year now, but the two instantly became firm friends. Kessie's previous crew was... well, let's just say he wasn't the type of person qualified to drive an engine, let alone talk to one. Any sort of frustration the man had, related to Kessie or not, would be projected by telling her off.
"You really are the most irritating train ever, you know that?" he shouted.
The scrawny-looking man was holding a long bottle, and his legs were unstable.
"Like you are so high maintenance, it's unbelievable!"
Kessie would put on a brave face, her dark brown eyes laser-focused on the stubby fellow. "I am a steam locomotive who needs time and preparation to work. Of course I'm high maintenance." And she said so with the most monotone voice, almost zero hint of emotion. With no reasonable reaction to proceed, the man just raised his voice and flung his bottle against Kessie's tanks. The remaining beer that was once inside the bottle was now running down the curves of Kessie's body down to her footplate. The glass shattered everywhere, but that wasn't enough to stop the man from storming his way towards Kessie's face. He was just close enough, and deep under the driver's breath, he murmured, "Oui, Nico, be assez fa." There was a long silence. The only sounds heard was the sound of the driver's breath heaving heavily. He took one step back and began to walk away. I am not a creature. The man stopped and slowly turned his head back. What did you say? He hissed. Kessie wished leaned back and repeated louder, I am not a creature. There was a tone to her voice, almost sassy-like. You don't get to talk to me the way you talk to a goat. Again, I am a steam locomotive. Whatever problem you have with your life is not my fault. I would like to remind you that this is a drunk man in a fight with a tank engine. Therefore, not the best decisions were made. Actions were made that shouldn't have been done. Words were spoken that shouldn't have been said. Ironically, some of those remarks were exact phrases he said to his goat. But Kessie stood strong. She was battered and beaten, and if there was a darker color than black, well, that's what her paintwork was. A sigh of relief, the driver, now labeled retired, walked away from the engine, leaving her to rot in her own shed. Kessie stayed there for many days. Minutes turned into hours, hours into days, and, well, you get it. It was just a few weeks later until a young-looking woman peered into her shed. Hey there, the woman said sweetly. Oh, you're a pretty thing, aren't you? May I? She gestured her hands as a sign of consent. Kessie only blinked innocently. I'd come in peace, I promise. And the woman raised both her arms up. My name is Ivan. What's yours? The little black engine didn't know what to make of this mysterious woman. But for some reason, she had a strong feeling she could trust her. You have to help me, she said frantically. The words just spilled out. That never happened before. Kessie quickly shut her mouth up, making an upside-down V shape with her lips, visibly embarrassed and nearly red in the face. Yvonne looked at the poor thing apathetically. She saw fear in the engine's eyes. In a calm and quiet voice, she asked reassuringly, Is everything all right? Kessie wanted to respond. She wanted to say, No. I've been mentally and physically abused by my driver, and he dumped me in the shed to rust. I'm tired of being a prisoner. Please, help me. But instead, she said nothing. Her mouth was open, but her voice was mute. Yet, despite not a word, Yvonne understood exactly what happened. She walked a little closer, putting her hands on Kessie's cold, cold smoke box. I'll set you free, love, she whispered. You won't be abandoned anymore. That, over everything Kessie has been through, forms a small tear rolling down her wounded cheek. A sisterhood was born. After Kessie's scolding with the tall man, who was the controller, she shunted some trucks in an open yard. She was still salty, however, thinking about every way the controller was wrong about her being late. Are you still cross about the whole being late thing? Responded Yvonne. That was over an hour ago. But it's not fair, Kessie said. I'm always falsely accused of things I didn't do, just because I was shut up in that shed. But Yvonne stopped Kessie from speaking before she could say another word. Kessie, love, what happened with that man is not your fault. We've been over this. I know. But it still hurts, even after all this time. The talk controller didn't even notice I was inactive until you found me. Now he's just forcing all these unnecessary lectures on me. Yvonne sighed. While she didn't want to admit it, the work pile had become higher recently, and Kessie had been scolded more times than she can count. It truly has been a tough year for the engine. Kessie wheezed a little steam in pity and wheezed. Never mind it. I'll just finish this last goods train. She looked up ahead to see a lot more trucks than she anticipated. A very long goods train. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the sounds of a whistle blasted in the air. The noise echoed everywhere. It startled a family of birds and passing trees, and even Kessie herself. Then the ground started to rumble. Some rocks hopped about and dust slowly danced under Kessie's wheels. Rolling next to her was a large red locomotive. What an odd-looking engine, she thought. And he was. The engine looked disassembled, like the designers put the wrong pieces in the wrong place. The boiler was in the front of the train, and also the back. And it looked like a whole other engine itself was trapped in between, like a big train sandwich.
Hello there,
he speaks, quite loudly too.
Did you shunt this train for me?
Kessie gave a soft and relieved smile, glad to see that the engine was a potential threat. Yes, I did, she said in her most proudest voice. You must be as strong as Superman to pull this lot. Where are you heading with such a long load? The red giant gave a friendly grin.
I'm going to Salaam. It's a long way, but that's what I'm built for, eh? Oh my!
And he said that last bit with such a realization, as if he forgot his keys at home.
How rude of me not to introduce myself. I'm always saying manners first. My name is Kwaku.
And my name's Kessie. Kessie already seemed to like Kwaku, and vice versa. There seems to be something about trust that engine always seems to find. If you don't mind me asking, Kessie says, what type of engine are you? I've never quite seen anyone like you before. Kwaku didn't hesitate to answer, especially since he'd practically gotten used to the question by now.
I am a Garrett engine. I was built to pull nearly 1,200 tons of freight, so a measly train like this doesn't bother me at all.
Kessie was amazed. The pure confidence in this engine, it was more than just impressive, but inspiring. Okay, if you can pull all these trucks on your own, allegedly, don't you ever think you need any help? Like a banker up a hill or something?
But of course! I may be almighty on paper, but even a tough engine like me needs assistance sometimes. It's like I always say, 2 engines are much better than 1.
Indeed they are.
And given how well you manage this section, I'd say you're a pretty tough engine yourself. Who knows? Maybe you could pull your own goods train with me one day. The concept of traveling has never occurred to Kessie before. She began to get curious. Kwaku was already in the front of the train and buffered up to the long line of trucks, vans, and many other things. As he was getting coupled up, Kessie raced along the track side of him. Wait! Before you go! She had to catch her breath before she said the next set of words. I need to ask you a question. Well, I'm all vents. But, of course, if I were, I'd be blowing more air than you're breathing right now.
Kessie didn't reply right away. Of course, there was the fact she was still catching her breath. But also because it was a question she was unsure of asking. A question that she never realized she wanted to know until now. Is Daddy Salaam nice?
Oh, yes, very nice indeed,
said the big red engine. He looked up to the sky, admiring the great big clouds.
Oh, the people are very kind, lots of colored buildings, and the dogs, very busy, I tell you.
It sounds wonderful, Kessie said very softly. A pure railway does, in fact, exist. Now a brand new question sprouted in her funnel. One more thing before you go? Kwaku looked down at the little engine, respectfully waiting for the second bit. Can I come with you to Tanzania? Is what she wanted to say, but instead said, good luck on your travels, and stay safe. Kwaku gave a reassuring wink.
I promise I will. Thank you, Kessie. I can't wait to meet you again soon. And with a shriek of a whistle, Kwaku grandly left the Kenyan shunting yards, leaving behind a very desperate Kessie. Later that night, Kessie rolled comfortably into her shed. It was a small wooden berth, just enough for her to fit through. In fact, this was the same exact shed Kessie was locked up in. But since then, the building was refurbished,
just enough to make it feel less like a prison and more like a home. As she chuffed inside, Kessie couldn't stop thinking about Kwaku. Yvonne must have picked up on this as she walked in front of her engine and sat down snugly on her buffer beam. "What's on your mind, love? You haven't said a word since that big engine left." Kessie didn't want to say anything, but there was no going past Yvonne. She knew her engine all too well. "Well, you promise you won't judge me?" Yvonne placed her hand to her chest and the other up high. "I promise." Well, I've been thinking, what if... What if we travel to a different railway? Maybe somewhere in, I don't know, Tanzania? Oh, that was not the question I was expecting. Kessie just stammered in embarrassment. "I knew this was a bad question. Forget I said anything." And she blew off steam in humiliation. "Kessie, my love, there's no such thing as a bad question," Yvonne comforts respectfully. "It just caught me by surprise, that's all." Kessie, with both of her eyes shut, opens one of them to look at her driver. "I'm tired of being a nothing character. I want to see the world." Yvonne gave a small chuckle and patted down her eager engine. "To see the world, eh? The world is big, you know. Very big. I mean, how are you going to travel at all? Not everywhere is a railway." Kessie stopped and thought for a moment. She didn't think of the potential restrictions of her being a railway engine. "I'll find a way," she finalized. "I know you will. Good night, love. Usiku mema." "Good night, Evie. Usiku mema." And the little engine went fast asleep, dreaming about the open world and a better life she could potentially grasp. Since the day Kessie and Kwaku met, Kessie was longing to leave the yard and the small goods. Every time she shuns a train for another engine, she's always so willing, sometimes begging for them to give it up and let her take it instead. The number of replies show a clear answer of how successful she was.
No. Absolutely not.
Who are you?
"Nini?
Aren't you a little small to pull this?"
I may be small, but I have the strength," she responded. "Just give me a chance, please." A big gray tender engine looked at his train, and then back at Kessie. It was only a couple seconds, but to Kessie, it felt like ages until she got an answer.
"You know what? What the heck? Take it. I'm getting too old for this anyways."
She did it! She got her first goods train. Both engines were mutual about the decision. There's absolutely no way Kessie's plan could go wrong now. "No." "What?" "I said no." And the driver hopped out of her cab and walked in front of Kessie. "I'm not taking you to Dar es Salaam, Kessie. For starters, that's miles away. And who's gonna do your job here? Who else is gonna shunt the trucks or take the small goods?" Kessie harumphed an objection. "You said I could travel the world." "I was boosting your confidence back. I didn't think you meant it literally." "So what, you just lied to me?" "I never lied to you, love, and I never will." "Then how come I can't go, eh? No one cares if I'm gone, you know that. The toll controller—" "Enough about the toll controller, Kessie," she snapped. It was a stern tone, one that Kessie's never heard her speak before. Nearly caught her off guard. Yvonne took a deep breath. Several, in fact. She spoke in her soothing voice again. "Listen, I love you more than anything in the world. You know that for a fact." She paused and gulped, as if she had a lump in her throat, as if she was about to burst into tears. "But if anything ever happened to you, anything at all, I would never forgive myself for it. I didn't just save you because you were shut up. I saved you because you needed love and protection. I love you, Kessie." The tank engine peered down at her human friend. She was more than just a friend, really. She was a caretaker, a guardian. A mother. A mother who was too afraid to let her baby go. I love you too, Evie. Yvonne thought long and hard. Memories came back of when Kessie was locked in her shed. So sad and alone, longing to see anything beside those two wooden walls. And just like magic, Yvonne had an epiphany, a complete 180. She doesn't know why, but there was an urge to stand upright, look Kessie dead in the eye, and said, "Fill up your cola and water. We got a train to Tanzania to take." It seemed like ages before Kessie backed up to her load. The train was small at first, only about 6 or 9 trucks. Not the longest goods train Kessie's ever seen, not counting Kwaku's train, of course. But this goods train was collectively her one-way ticket to new territory, so it didn't mind to her how long the train was at all. Kessie quickly couples up to the line of rolling stock. She lets off steam with a great deal of excitement, so much so Yvonne's hair blew out of proportions. "Whoa there! I just got this done! Whoops! Sorry, Evie." "It's alright. I didn't do that good of a job anyway. I can't wait to leave this blasted yard. Remember, we're not staying there. We're simply taking the train and coming back in the morning." Kessie cursed under her breath. I wish I could stay. Yvonne can only pity the tank engine as she hopped inside her cab. Well, here goes nothing. With an energetic flip of the regulator, Kessie's wheels slowly turned, wheel inch by wheel inch, until she was out of the yard. Kessie was finally free. Woohoo! Kessie raced along the open line. The wind flapped about, howling louder and louder as she hurried across the tracks. Yvonne stuck her head out the window of the cab, letting the breeze flow behind. Admittedly, she did enjoy the long run for a change. The journey was long, but worthwhile. To each new landmark Kessie stopped at was a new addition to the train. It was struggling at first, but thankfully, Kessie is an adaptable engine and knows how to find the entertainment in pulling trucks, such as singing a song. What song did you have in mind? Yvonne asked. Kessie's smile grew grand. You know which song I'm thinking about. Anybody got a harmonica? Oh, you. Take it away then. And so she did. And I never thought I'd feel this way. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad I got the chance to say that I do believe I love you. And if I should ever go away, well then close your eyes and try to feel the way we do today. And then if you can remember, keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for good times and bad times. I'll be on this side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Well, you came and opened me. Kessie and the Trucks and Company sang in beautiful harmony the whole trip. Yvonne was able to listen to a lovely performance, and so did the people they met. Everywhere the musical brigade traveled, a group of folks would stand on the side, either singing along or cheering them on. Others would even hop in some of the trucks and join along for the ride. Kessie bellowed the lyrics long and loud for the whole country to hear. It was the most sincere feeling of joy she hadn't felt in a long time. Knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for. In good times In bad times I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for. Kessie made it to Salaam docks later that night. She was tired, but very proud of herself indeed. That was amazing! Kessie praised as she slowed to a stop right next to a large red hammerhead crane. We have got to do this again! Yvonne can only smile in agreement. She didn't say anything, only because she didn't want to get Kessie's hopes up, but she would be lying if she said she wouldn't ask for an encore. The hammerhead peered down at the black tank engine, and then her trucks, and then back to Kessie again. It was hard to see in the dark, but you can only just make out little of what looked like the engine. You are a lot smaller than I thought you'd be. The unknown voice caught Kessie by surprise. Who said that? Up here. You must be very strong if you're pulling this many trucks. I know I am. I'm proud of it. My name's Kessie. Kobe, is this your first time? Coming here or pulling trucks? But the bellowing sound of a whistle blew before Kobe could reply, and it was a whistle Kessie could recognize almost immediately. Kwaku! Kwaku the Garrett engine thundered into the docks. His lamp sparkled brightly as he arrived from the opposite direction, just as excited to reunite with his new friend. Kessie, my friend, he hooted. I don't believe it! What are you doing all the way over here? Taking this goods train to Dar es Salaam, and I did it! The grand engine chuckled loudly. To some, it would have felt as if the ground was about to give way, but to Kwaku, he would have noticed no matter how much the ground shook. And so you have. As the steam trains conversed down below, Kobe decided to butt himself in, almost feeling a little left out in the reunion. You know this engine, Kwaku? Oh, yes. I met with her when I was in Kenya. She's fine working that one. Very useful. Kessie's boiler went cold. She tried to process the exact words she just heard. What did you say? She asked timidly. I said you were a useful engine. There they were again. Those words. A useful engine. That phrase, that specific phrase. It felt big. They felt meaningful. They felt like they had a purpose. No one has ever called me that before. Noticing how the conversation had slightly gone off the rails, pun definitely intended, Kobe decided to speak up one last time. How about you show Kessie the way to the shed? She needs a place to rest after that long run, eh? All right, Kwaku agreed. Come with me, Kessie. The two engines rolled back into a large six-berth shed. Kwaku, carefully noticing the pondering chain, saw anguish in her eyes. Something was bothering her. Something heavy. They were nearly buffers away from the wall until he finally spoke up. Are you okay, Kessie? You have been very quiet for quite a while. Have you... And she considered how to phrase this. Have you ever felt dehumanized? Dehumanized? I know it's ironic to say that we're not humans. We're engines, but... I know what you mean. He said it with such a disheartening tone. The grandness in his voice was suddenly all gone. His face fell into a disappointing brow. I know exactly what you mean. You do? My design, my shape, it's unique. There's no other engine quite like me. So when people look at me, they look at me like I'm a freak, like I'm all wrong. Others just simply think I was built wrong. Kessie's face went red in guilt. Don't worry, I know you meant well. Kwaku took a deep sigh and a self-assuring chuckle. No one thought I was able to run properly.
So they all doubted me and gave up on me. I'll admit it, for a moment, I was thinking I wasn't fit to make it on the railway either. But I told myself, no, I demanded myself to never dwell on that thought. I am a Garrett steam locomotive, and I have a purpose on the East African Railway. And so do you.
That's not what my controller thinks. He doesn't care about me at all.
But I do. I care.
There was a genuine expression on Kwaku's face. He didn't appear to look so big, despite his size. Instead, he was level with Kessie. He was an equal. That, dear audience, was enough to make the little engine cry. She cried, and cried, and cried, until her boiler ran dry. I have been disrespected by men my whole life, she sobbed. Anything I do, anything at all, they would tell me off, say what a bad engine I am. But you're the only engine, actually, the only someone in general to treat me with the utmost respect. That is, after Ivan. Oh, Evie, I cannot describe how generous she's been to me since the day she found me locked in my shed. It's her love that keeps me going in life. And so I'll continue to love you. The sounds of footsteps came from Kessie's cab. Ivan stopped and rested on the snug spot of Kessie's footplate again. Every single day, no matter what you do, I'll always support you every step of the way. That's why I agreed to take this goods chain. Your well-being means the world to me. And I would do anything to see that winning smile on your face. If you want to shine, I will clean you. If you want to run, I will drive you. Hell, if you want to hold two over, I will make you the most beautiful engine there is. Two over? Our names are what make up who we are as an individual. We gain characteristics of ourselves and build traits on things that we enjoy and dislike. Sometimes those things we dislike are ourselves. And sometimes we don't even notice how much of ourselves we truly despise. When Kessie was first bought, it was out of desperation for the railway. The tall controller was in need of another engine, and so Kessie was purchased. And she came with no name. When she first arrived, having a name was something that meant everything to her.
Hey you, the controller called out. Are you the new engine I ordered?
Yes, I am, sir, the tank engine said honorably. I can't wait to make you proud.
Yeah, whatever. You're welcome. We have a serious mess in the yard, and I need you to sort it out quickly.
Oh, okay.
Good. Make it hasty now.
The tall controller was just about to walk away until... Are you going to give me a name, sir?
Pardon?
A name. I never had a name before, and the workman told me that you will give me one once I get here. Oh, unless you need more time. Were you not ready, or am I being too direct?
I don't know what you're talking about. What name?
I thought you would name me in honor of the railway. The tall controller just pinched the temple of his nose in utter annoyance. Of course she had to be this type of engine. The tank engine immediately felt a wave of guilt wash over her.
You know what? Fine. Give me a moment.
He walked inside a little office door adjacent to the platform. It was another couple of minutes before the controller came back holding a book titled Brand New Names for Your Little Baby. He opened the book roughly and flipped through the pages of names A to J, back to B, and skipped through Z. He finally stopped at a page at random. K.
Aha! There. Kessie. You like that? Kessie? You got a name now, okay? You should be satisfied now.
Of course, it was sardonic, but that never dawned in his engine. Not then, anyways. She finally had a name. something that belonged to her.
What are you waiting for? There's work to be done.
Oh, yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Kessie squirmed, and she hurried to do her first task. If you were to ask Kessie today what she thought of her name, well, she wouldn't outright state it, but she would say that her name feels forced upon her. She'd say that it doesn't hold as much value as she thought it would. To anyone named Kessie in the audience, it's not the fact that the name itself doesn't have value, but rather it's the subject it's defining. Kessie does not define who this engine is, and it's been a burden on that engine ever since. The thought of a do-over could just be the transition Kessie needed. Just the idea of starting from scratch all over again was enough to win her over. But that begs the question, is Yvonne being legit? Is she willing to go forth with this big decision and support Kessie no matter what? Or was this just another confidence boost? Maybe it was. Maybe this was just another idea brushed to the side, only to dam the tears from flowing. While Yvonne may be stern, she isn't cruel. Is she? But after all Kessie's been through, after all the struggle and suffering, isn't a fresh start necessary? Or maybe I should rephrase that. Isn't it not the right thing to do? Kessie took in Yvonne's words very carefully. That last part specifically needed to be as articulate as possible. You mean to tell me, she continued, if I wanted to do a whole do-over, a restart, you'd support me? Without a doubt in her voice, Yvonne beamed in return. I will always support you, love.
I know a workshop not too far from here, Kwaku said. They work wonders, you know. Even with the toughest scars, they're able to patch me up. Maybe they can do the same for you.
You really think they can? Kessie asked hopefully.
Positive.
At the break of dawn the next morning, Kessie and Kwaku were traveling down the track to the Tanzania works. As they were chuffing along, Kessie kept on thinking of alternative names that would identify her appropriately. Kwaku, may I ask, how did you get your name?
Well, I was built on a Wednesday.
And he grinned cheesily. Kessie rolled her eyes comedically. But seriously, why are you named Kwaku?
Well, that is what my name means. For humans, it means to be born on a Wednesday.
There was a certain look in his eyes. It almost seemed as if he was hesitating to say the next part.
And people who are named Kwaku were often hot-headed and rough. I think you and I both know that's definitely not my type of character, even if I tried.
Kessie silently agreed.
Since I was shipped here, the only thing my people saw was a big metal machine. So, naturally, what came to mind was a strong-spirited name. Thus, moi.
How did you ever live with that? Living with an unsuited name? Kwaku reanimates his visage to a soothing, then proud expression.
What I didn't mention is that some people named Kwaku are known to be tenacious. Do you know what that means?
If Kessie could shake her head, that would be her response, but her appearance was enough to get the idea.
Well, it means that I persevere, that I never give up. And for a while, I couldn't give up at all. I had to prove myself worthy every day that I'm not just a machine with wheels. I represent one of 30 of my class, and one of hundreds of garrets around the world. If Kwakus like me are known to be tenacious, then I show nothing but respect to the title.
Kessie gazed at the magnificent locomotive. To her perspective, Kwaku's head was held up high in admiration. His splendid red coat glistened in the sun. He really did appear to be tenacious, and by doing so is what gave him a purpose to the railway. That word. It seems to be following her everywhere all of a sudden. A word that always segregated Kessie from her and the talk controller. To him, what purpose does she really have? Shunting trucks, small goods. Anyone can do that. Anyone can fill up that space. But that's not what the rest of Kenya thought. That's not what Kwaku thought. That's not what Yvonne thought. That's not what anyone thought. Anyone can navigate trucks, but can they get along with them? Can they sing a lovely chorus 500 miles without complaint? Can they have a loving relationship with their crew who would do anything for her engine? Do they have that purpose? It didn't take long before the two African engines reached the doorway of the works.
Here we are, the Tazara workshop. It's getting a little old, but the trip will be worth it.
Kwaku wasn't kidding when he said the building was old. Kessie could only make out what looked like a white building all covered in rust and soot. Engine parts were scattered all over the place, and little coaches were withering away in cold, empty sidings. If a certain Cuban engine were to see this, he would have been frozen in utter shock. There was a little judgment, but Kessie could trust Kwaku. If he says this is the place, this is the place. Yvonne peeked out the window of her cab to get a good look at the structure. She gave a pitiful whistle as she turned her head in condolences for the poor buildings. There was a timid feeling Kessie had about going inside. She tries to hide it, but Kwaku must have noticed it long since they reached the parameters.
Hey, I'm aware I can be a little expressive when I talk. But when I say those people can do wonders, I mean it from the bottom of my heart.
That made Kessie feel just a little bit better. Yvonne stepped in front of the black tank engine. She eyed down her like a mother seeing her daughter leave for college. Her daughter was ready to start the next chapter of her life. Tears started to form on her face. Loving tears. Motherly tears. Yvonne climbed on top of Kessie's footplate and placed her forehead on top of the engines. It was a weird position to look at, and if another person were to try this, they'd probably burn their heads off from the hot steam stored in the smoke box. Yvonne did in fact feel warmth, but it didn't come from the smoke box, but instead from the bond of a mother and her child. She gives a small kiss on top of Kessie's head and backs down again. I will love you no matter who you are. Just then, the doors of the works screeched open, enough for their ears to be pierced. Loud, spluttering sounds were made. It came from a small but hardy transfer table, slowly making its way to Kessie's line. Just before it stopped, some workmen walked out, preparing themselves for Kessie's arrival. The moment the parallel lines finally connected, the motor made an awful grunt. The sound snapped Kessie back to realization. She had a purpose for being here. These were the final steps to truly becoming herself. This was her only chance to become herself. That's why she took this journey. To be herself. And once she is herself, she could be a really useful engine. That's all she ever wanted. That's all any engines ever wanted. With a sharp inhale, an exceedingly long exhale, Kessie moved baby steps, in this case wheel inches, inside the giant room of the workshop. It was very crowded inside the building, not of engines, but of engine parts. Whatever scars Kwaku had battled, it must have been light work to repair with all these doohickeys laying about. There was a sign on the side of the door that read, Made in Tanzania, all in caps. However, the sign was in poor condition, much like the rest of the area. Corners were peeling off, mold was forming around it, and some letters were fading away. All 5 letters, T through A in Tanzania, were nearly invisible to a blind eye, which left the last 3 letters to eyesight. Nia. This caught the attention of the little engine as she slowed to a stopping point. Excuse me, Mom, she called out to a young woman who was preparing her paintbrushes. The woman looked up in surveillance of the machine. Yes? Do you happen to know the meaning of this name? It felt like almost an eternity until they were finally done in the works. Kwaku and Yvonne were waiting anxiously for the grand reveal. At last, the shrieking sounds of the Tesoro doors opened again. Steam bellowed from the opening, making it quite hard to see, but the entrance much more cinematic. Out those doors came a bright orange-colored tank engine, with East African patterns streaming down the side of her tanks. She had a large 18 situated on the side of her cab, and her name, in full bold letters for the world to see on both sides. My name is Nia. I'm a hard-working tank engine all the way from Kenya, and I have a purpose on the East African Railway. Yvonne raised her engine wide open in acceptance. Kwaku laughed a lovely laugh. His face couldn't help but beam with joy. You'd think his mouth would be stuck like that forever. Nia, you say? I say it fits you perfectly. Yvonne was still wandering around the engine, like a child opening a brand new toy for Christmas. As she reached the cab, she came face to face with the large 18 painted there. She gave a puzzled look. Why 18 of all numbers? Mia giggled in excitement. She was hoping someone would ask. Just like how you humans become an adult once you turn 18, you're finally free to the open world. This is my 18th.